before we delve into the details, it's important to perhaps set the context. Now, for those of us who've come to Davos every year for a number of years, such as me, you know, the word crypto, I remember there was a time when the X bar was actually the hub for another different organization, and crypto was at the end of the promenade. And there was always this joke that you started off at the beginning of the promenade with the Cloudflare, the established traditional tech companies, and in the middle were the governments, and then, you know, at the very end were the crypto, cannabis, and all the rest that, you know, you sort of the fringe of the fringe, right? And what is very interesting to see is that now we are front and center. Crypto is front and center. We are not only front and center on the promenade, but all over Davos. I mean, in the actual annual meeting program as well, the discussion is all about institutional crypto and how to manage that. The JP Morgans, the BlackRocks of the world dealing in that. I mean, some of these discussions tomorrow and the day after. But I think no one can say anymore, hey, this is a fringe thing that's at the end of the promenade, right? And what has enabled this change? I think we should take a moment here to, a certain sense, pat ourselves on the back, because this change has been driven by us, all of us who stood up to all the sort of, oh no, this is not going to happen. Oh, this is all a scam. Oh, this is just not relevant. This is only for money laundering, etc. We stood up and said, no, this is about decentralization of finance. This is about financial freedom, and this is about innovation in finance and in how the world can work. And the companies here reflect that. I think this whole event, the CRYPTO2030, reflects that. And things have happened, right? We now have Bitcoin ETF and other ETFs, the Ethereum ETF on the way. Now, whether you like it or not, and a lot of us don't like the ETF as a mechanism for decentralization, because it is the absolute opposite of decentralization in a certain sense, but there is no questioning that now generational money, or let's say the money that was being invested in real estate and houses and real estate and financial and other things and horses and things like that, will now be invested in Bitcoin in one form or another, right? So over the next 30 years, this is now going to be permanent. So you can't say anymore that this is a fringe or a fringe. But while we can obviously pat ourselves on the back on that, there are challenges ahead. And these challenges are more apparent every day, both in terms of what can we do to scale, as I think this is an issue for all of us. One thing is getting a certain TVL, one thing is getting a certain number of users, downloads. Another thing is scaling to a point where, for example, it is becoming de facto. And I think we are far away from being de facto, right? And the second thing, of course, is security and the safety, and more than the security, is that for a lot of retail investors, or even the average Joe, as we call it, there are no average Joes in Davos, by the way, but if there were, you could say, hey, I just don't want my money to disappear. So if I put in $1,000 into something today and tomorrow it's $700, that's a huge difference for me. I don't want to wait till it's back on to $1,100. That's just, that doesn't work for me. And there's, of course, the breaches which happen all the time. So we need to look at these things and say, what can we do to make crypto, particularly when it comes to DeFi, particularly when it comes to the more cutting-edge innovation that we see on the stage here, what can we do to make it safer? I mean, I'm not just talking about cybersecurity, but to make it safer. And Piers, would you want to take a shot at that?
Sure, absolutely. I think that the safety aspect of crypto really comes down to how we let people use crypto in the first place. So if you look at the user experience that we have for MetaMask, or the user experience that we have for Trust Wallet, it generally means that when you're connecting to a DEX, or when you're connecting to Aave, or a lending protocol, when you're connecting to any of these things, it feels a lot like being thrown into the deep end, to be thrown to the wolves. And anyone who has had a problem with their wallet and posted that on Twitter, or posted that in a Telegram group, knows how often you get scams, people reaching out to you being like, oh, I can help you, just give me your seed phrase. Yes. And so the number of times that everyday people are scammed, the number of times that very legitimate people in the industry have their wallet drained, have their crypto stolen, and the amount of money that is lost just by losing your seed phrase means that the everyday experience of crypto is absolutely terrifying. So when it comes to security and safety, I think that at base, crypto is a very secure system. Like from a cryptographic point of view, you can't steal a Bitcoin. But from an everything else that sits on top of it point of view, it becomes very, very difficult because it's this idea of be your own bank means that you're suddenly responsible for everything that might happen to your money. This is the biggest problem, I think, actually in crypto today. It isn't so much a tech problem, but a how do you make it as intuitive to use crypto applications as it is to use Instagram, as it is to use WhatsApp, as it is to use Facebook? How can we make it as easy to send money as it is to send a photograph? The Radix approach to that has been, well, actually how we've built the tech stack so far makes it incredibly difficult to do so. A good example of this is that when you create a new ERC20 token, if you create a new token on Ethereum and I sent it to my friend, it wouldn't appear in his wallet. The idea that I can create a token, send it to someone, and it doesn't appear in the wallet is kind of crazy. If you know how ERC20 tokens work, it makes complete sense. You have to then go into the wallet and you have to put a pointer to a new smart contract address so that you can see the token. Of course you do. But for an everyday person, that's absolutely crazy, right? And so on Radix, we made all tokens native. So there's no such thing as adding token contract addresses. Everything is instantly viewable within the wallet. The next thing that's crazy is as soon as you download a wallet and you try and install it, it goes, hey, here's this 12-word seed phrase. And if you don't remember this, you lose all of your money. Right? And so recoverability is not baked into these platforms. And so what we did on Radix is we made recoverability baked into the platform, so that now if you lose your phone, if you lose your device, you can actually via decentralized fashion recover your accounts. And the key was making sure that your public-private key pair was not what your account was. So on Radix, your account and your public-private key pair is a completely different, separate concept. So your account, you can lose your public-private key pair and you can still recover your account. So making decentralized recovery work in the same way that you would understand a bank recovery to work. That's key as well. Because while these feel like small things to people who are every day in the industry, they're massive things to people who just want their $700 not to disappear, who just want to be able to go and do a transaction and not feel like they have to have a PhD in computer science to be able to do that. So for me, that's where Radix really focuses on. And I know it's not security that every day, you might think of it at a cryptographic level, but it is security at a human level, and making crypto more human is, I think, what the whole industry has to strive for to get mass adoption.
So I would love to add to what you have just said, two additional things. So one element that is super important is education, because from the technological point of view, blockchain is a secure system. But the problem is that people are not educated well enough to understand the problems, the security issues, this and that. And I will give you an interesting example of my mother, to whom I tried to explain crypto. And she was trying to do something with MetaMask, and she said, yeah, the gas fee is high. And I said, yes, it's high. And she said, it's because Putin is not selling gas to Europe. That's because this is how, we should speak not about the gas fees. We should speak about transaction fee at the end. Why are we using those hard words that no one understands? That's another element, education and simplification of the terms that we are using in the crypto. And another thing is that is holding the mass adoption from happening is user experience. Like MetaMask looks like an apps in 90s on Windows 95, really. Like it looks like from then. And it's like usability of that, it's not super easy. And I believe that we will see a big boost in mass adoption once those big tech companies like Apple will change the wallet that they have. And you have digital things, you have digital assets on your wallet, like plane passes, concert passes, different things on your Apple wallet. And once your wallet, Apple wallet, is going to be a crypto wallet with a secure element based on biometric, for example, and recoverability, as you pointed out. So this is super important as well. And the third thing, to make it a little bit more secure, responsibility. Like organizations that are providing tools and applications in crypto, in most cases, in many cases, they are not taking responsibility for anything that they are doing. They can have a very weak security on the smart contract side at the end, And they do not care because it's decentralized. So it's not our fault that we have been hacked and hundreds of millions disappeared, evaporated. And with regulations that are stepping in, at least some element of responsibility is going to be added, which will put on the people that are building products some pressure on maybe fulfill some security requirement a little bit more. So those are the three elements that, from my point of view, are super important as well.
Marcel.
Yeah, what I can chip in here is when I look at DeFi and crypto where it stands today, it really reminds me of like 15 to 20 years ago, and I was like a computer guy, dev support, you know, doing networks, fixing computers and stuff. And
turn off and on.
Sorry?
Turn on and off.
Yeah, exactly. And my friends would call me up and say, hey, I have this new laptop. I just connected it to the broadband internet, which was new back then. And, you know, I just downloaded one MP3, but now I have this blue screen and nothing works. What's going on? So literally within 30 minutes, there was like a time span of 1 year. Within 30 minutes, when you downloaded something off the internet, your computer had a virus and it was unusable and you literally had to set up everything again. And that's exactly where we stand today with DeFi and crypto, I would say, with the main difference that you actually lose money, right? There you just set up Windows again, but here you actually most likely lose your funds. So whenever you set up or you want to reach out for help, you get contacted by those scam people for fake support. Our website got probably copied 1-to-1 3 times already, so people are kind of lured into, hey, this is the Thorwallet website. It looks exactly the same, but when you click on Wallet Connect, it's a drainer wallet, everything is gone, and you're constantly battling those scammers. But look at where we are today with, you know, everyone has 4 or 5G now on the mobile phone. You don't really bother anymore about broadband. Everything is working fluently. You don't know how TCP works. It doesn't matter. And that's where we will be with DeFi and crypto as well. It will just take some time. Some guy like you and me who relentlessly work on this technology, making it better, account abstraction, that you can pay with any token, that it just shows up, for example. All those usability things are needed to onboard the masses. Yeah, and overall education, obviously very important. One reason why I'm still at university, although I have only very little time, I think education is absolutely key. And the learning curve in DeFi is super steep. Basically, it's steep because when you get scammed, you lose money. And when you lose money, you really want to make sure it doesn't happen again. Maybe you get scared away for a couple of months or weeks, and then eventually you will come back. But maybe you also stay and yeah, you just continue your journey. With every scam and hack, you get better. Everything is about you know, your knowledge gets self-educated. Non-custodial means you actually are your own bank, and self-responsibility is actually key.
That's a lot of points that we just raised there, but I think the 3 main threads we're talking about is, of course, security is not just the responsibility of the provider. It's also responsibility, a certain degree of the user to not do certain things, understand certain things, which is underpinned by the fact that there is still, and I would completely agree, total lack of education. I think we should start teaching crypto in high school or whatever. I think children are actually much more educated than...
I really challenge that. I really want to challenge that.
But let me finish. I'll come back to you, Piers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the third point, I think, was on the infrastructure side. And this is a very interesting point, because I think the infrastructure side of the topic has been underlooked, or has been overlooked, whichever way you want to look at it, right? Just to put in context, I don't know how many of you know of the Onyx network, right? The Onyx network has been started by JP Morgan. They have built a blockchain from ground zero, or ground -1, if you want to call it that. And they have built it specifically for one application, and one application only, which is their major clients. They have only 3 major clients: BlackRock, Blackheath, and the other black one, and Blackstone and US government. These are the 3 major clients that JP Morgan serves. So it is the clearinghouse for these three clients, which is about 90% of their volume, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And they built them to exchange digitally I wouldn't call them entirely crypto, but tokenized assets, right? And so this is a blockchain built from ground up for that. And trust me, they have made sure that it's ultra secure all the way up. So to me, there is, I think, one of the inflection points here, and we're obviously moving on in time in the panel, and I'd like somebody to give me a time check as well on the other side. I don't know where we are in the overall scheme because there's no clock anywhere. Just 12? Okay, so we have 30 minutes, right. So essentially, this is an inflection point that I think I'd like the panel to come back on, is that, sure, we need to have education. Sure, we need to perhaps go out there and talk more about crypto in a positive way, leaving aside all the negativity that's there. For example, I don't know if you've heard, this very morning, a very reputable organization said, which is the UN, by the way, said that Tether, or Tether, whichever way you pronounce it, it's not a stable coin, really. It's just a money laundering scheme. And most of the money laundering process around the world is done through Tether. This is the UN saying that this morning, right? So suddenly you're like, okay, that's a 95 billion market. What are you saying that's just money laundering? So you've got terrible misinformation and misconstruction of what is going on. Because people, obviously, a lot of people in the UN, they wouldn't know back end and back office, right? So it's coming crypto, but they come up with a statement like that for the average person. It's like, so Tether is not USDT, it's a scam, and immediately you go into downspin, right? So there is education and there is fighting in misinformation. But I think we also have a responsibility in terms of what we're doing as an industry to ensure the security of the infrastructure. Where are the secure standards that you find in other tech niche, right? Where are the global standardization bodies, if there were, and we are decentralized, so we can't be one body, we'll probably have multiple bodies, but where is that initiative? And my question back to you guys is that, do you think that some of the, I wouldn't say failings, but deficiencies in today's infrastructure, when it comes to safety, security, ease of use, 12 seed, I mean, oh my God, the number of files I have with seed phrases on them. And yes, things like gas fees, which, okay, why is it a gas fee? There's no gas involved anywhere, right? So, do we have a responsibility as an industry to do something on that in terms of public facing, but also internally, in terms of just making sure that we are following at least some basic standards and some basic cooperation in making our infrastructure safe to use?
100%. But let me address the education point first.
But can we come back to Piers, because I want to come back. We'll come back on the I promise you. Right. But let's go on to infrastructure first, if you don't mind. Or maybe start with Pawel.
It's related. They're related. Like what you're saying is, with education, what you're saying is my user doesn't know enough to be able to use my platform, so their responsibility is to get better, right? Or you say my user doesn't know enough to be able to use my platform, therefore my responsibility is to get better. And I think that I think as an industry we tend to go, there's all of these problems that there's misinformation, there's hacks, there's exploits, people are getting money stolen. It's our responsibility to educate them. No, it's our responsibility to make better platforms so those things aren't possible in the first place. So security is a great point. Like the fact that there's been $8 billion of hacks today, right? You could say that's the responsibility of the developers. It's our responsibility to educate the developers to do better so they don't make mistakes in smart contracts. But actually, I think it's the responsibility of the industry to make the systems and the programs and the infrastructure that you use better, so that those things aren't possible in the first place, or that you radically reduce the amount of ways in which things can go wrong. Like you look at any of the hacks and you go, oh, the developer made a stupid mistake. They shouldn't have added that ability for reentrancy or recursion. It's like, well, is that actually the responsibility of the developer? Is it a responsibility of the platform? Okay. So that's our perspective, is you have to make the tools better. You have to make the programming languages more secure. You have to make the execution environments more secure. You have to make the consensus environments more secure. You have to come up down to the level that is necessary for the majority of people to become able to come and use it without having to have a large amount of education. Right. You don't need an instruction manual to use Instagram. You don't need an instruction manual to use your phone. You can just pick it up and use it. It's incredibly complicated technology. Yeah. But it is the responsibility of us as an industry to build better systems, not to go, it's the user's problem, we need to educate the user more.
Did any of you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so I will challenge this a little bit because you can't just, in terms of education, you can't just put education on one side. There are two sides of education, and one cannot exist from another one. Like, we as an industry are educating people, but they need to want to be educated, because without this willingness from their side, who gonna and how, what's gonna be the quality of the knowledge of that person? So I believe it's a responsibility of the person to be to have an interest to educate in such an area, but ours to provide tools so they can get resources, how to be educated, where to read about the things, how to provide some training programs, etc. So those are always both sides, and coffee does not exclude the tea. So it cannot coexist. It have to coexist together. So that's my point on that.
Okay, I don't know if you had any.
Yeah, but maybe I have a little bit of a simple or pragmatic view, and I believe that the technology risk is a decreasing risk over time. Like the viruses, you had a lot back then, you have fewer now. So technology risk is decreasing over time. It gets better and better. Same with DeFi, same with crypto. And with that said, bad protocols get weeded out over the time. If they get hacked, they get bankrupt. They can't run, they can't keep developing. So the good ones, the secure ones, at the end of the curve, they will stay and they will be secure. They're technologically hardened, because maybe they have been hacked once or three times, but then they were able to fix it, and now it's kind of unhackable. Uniswap V1, everyone probably agrees, this thing cannot be hacked, right? So it's technologically, it's hardened. And the thing will happen with layer ones per se, lending and borrowing protocols, every DeFi aspect really will harden over time. The only difference is that users can choose at which period of time they want to jump into DeFi, and the return you get is the opposite, right? The earlier you are, the higher you have a risk, but the higher is the return. The more secure it gets over time, in 10 years from now, everyone will be using DeFi, I'm quite sure, but the return will be lower, right? So everyone, can basically decide for himself when does he want to jump in, and then navigate.
So let's tackle the core of this. Assuming that we have infrastructure that scales and is secure, and assuming the education aspect has been addressed in balance, when you're looking at DEX in particular, you're looking at financial marketplaces, when you're looking at lending derivatives, here we are moving away from, let's say, core crypto more into core finance, right? We're bridging that gap. We're looking at how do you do things that you would do in traditional finance, so to speak, in DeFi today, but in a different way, because of course we're not addressing it the same way. There's no broker per se who's taking an order for 100 customers and putting something through. The market makers function a different way than they do in traditional finance. So I'd like the panel, and again, I'm sure there are different people in the room here with different interests and different levels of experience in these areas, but let's keep it not too technical and go with what would, in your opinion, the question is, what in your opinion would be the key enabler for financial marketplaces, decentralized financial marketplaces, lending, derivatives, DEX, to be adopted in crypto at scale as they and move away from, and in a certain sense, disrupt the current traditional financial hold on these sorts of products and services?
I can tackle that. I can start with this because I have a very clear view on that. So regulations that will combine and will allow to combine the traditional market with the crypto are super crucial to do so, because the technology is there. So I can do tokenize assets today, because I can own, let's say, 100,000 shares of Tesla, tokenize that, and issue 100,000 tokens that are tradable. The key element of the tokenization, real-world assets, and things that are happening right now is that the old industry, the financial industry, have its problems. Like, why we can trade shares, contracts, or anything from Monday to Friday, from 9 to 5. Do they shut down internet after those hours, or what? No, they don't. So it works all the time. But the reason of that is how those systems, those old legacy systems, has been structured. how people were trading stocks or contracts or anything else, like in 50s. They were on the floor shouting all around from Monday to Friday, from 9 to 5. So the people that started to do a digitalization of those processes were recreating the process that was known for them, and they recreated the same process. And of course, the internet was very a problematic thing back then. Right now, we have internet, we have everything, but we have systems from the 50s that have been designed in 50s, and the blockchain is basically the leap over the 50, 60 years of development of the industry, liquidity, making all the transaction systems all over the world where we can, in some different application, buy stocks for one click, but always from Monday to Friday, from 9 to 5. So this is important element, and this is the change that it's bringing. So together with the regulations, all those big guys will jump in. Why? Because it will allow them 24/7 for tradability. It will allow them to send money within 30 seconds without using correspondent banks. It will allow them not to collect 50% of the fees because the money went through a wrong route within the correspondent bank's networks. So it's going to be like a simple fee, not percentage fee. It's going to cost us $0.50 to send $500 million as well as $100. Yeah. You know, so that's the thing.
Great. Marcel?
I think for me the most important piece is to agree that it's not that it will happen, it will happen, and it's just a matter of time. So for me, actually, the time is the relevant piece in the equation. And you can choose when you want to enter the market because there's so many puzzle pieces like regulation, like education, better tooling for devs that need to set in place, and maybe they're not coming all at once, right? They come after each other, some in parallel, but there's so many puzzle pieces, and that it works as efficiently. And I mean, the current financial system, it does work, right? I mean, we can agree that it's broken to some degree, but generally it served its purpose for a good period of time. And if we do want to replace it, it needs to grow in parallel. And then eventually the advantages need to be so much better that everyone would want to switch, right? It's like a hybrid car, petrol, hybrid, everyone wants maybe full electro. And similarly here, so for me it's just a matter of time and that we keep on working.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that there's too many incredibly useful superpowers that come with public ledgers that can't be denied. But 24-hour trading is one of them, but like the composability of asset types as well. So like if I have a stock on the Shanghai Stock Exchange and I want to be able to buy something on the New York Stock Exchange today, I have to sell it on one stock exchange, get it into cash, move that cash across the world, then deposit it with a new broker, and then buy it on the New York Stock Exchange. Whereas if I have two DEXs that are trading those tokens, I can swap them for each other instantly. There's no such thing as like this idea of clearance and settlement. This idea of programmability is incredibly powerful. So of course DeFi is going to win. I think that you need to, looking at how the user migration within DeFi is a precursor to how it's going to happen within the traditional space as well. And so the first things that happened in the crypto space was tokenization of assets. Then once we had tokenization of assets, they then developed the secondary markets for spot trading. So then you got things like Uniswap and stuff like that. Now you're seeing Uniswap v3 volume regularly outpacing sort of some of the leading centralized exchanges. So that's now sort of in its maturity phase. Now you're seeing perpetuals go the same way. Perpetuals, currently about 98% of perpetuals volume is done on centralized exchanges in crypto. This is just crypto. But the derivatives markets like GMX and stuff like that are growing incredibly quickly. So I think that the next wave in DeFi is going to be perpetuals and derivatives. But this allows the crypto market, the DeFi market, to actually start to expand out into non-crypto assets. Because all you need is an Oracle feed. So if I get an Oracle feed of the pound or the dollar, I can get an Oracle feed of Tesla or Apple. Suddenly I can trade crypto derivatives on top of in decentralized marketplaces. So I think the derivatives market is going to lead, and then regulation is going to react to that. They're going to go, no, we don't want derivatives being able to be traded without there being KYC, without there being investor protections, and you're going to keep seeing this sort of like movement to and fro. But ultimately, that ability to have composability, to have instant clearing, to have 24-hour settlement, the ability to be able to have transparency in all transactions, ultimately all of that is going to way outperform what we have in the centralized markets today. So yeah, not a question of if, when, and my prediction is this year, next year, the big boom is going to be in derivatives.
Brilliant. Fantastic. I think looking at the time, we should now go to the floor. I'm sure there are plenty of questions and comments. There looks a lot of nodding heads during the conversation. So I don't know how are we doing this. Is there a mic that we share? We do, right. So there's a mic here and there's a gentleman there. Please, first of all, announce your name and what you do and then ask the question.
Right. My name is Fritz. I'm a private investor in the resource market. So I'd like to challenge you two gentlemen about DeFi. I'm a private investor mainly in the resource market, and the main market is the Toronto Stock Exchange. It's Canadian dollars. I'm located in Switzerland, so I automatically always have a risk. The point is, the Canadian system is probably the most antiquated system you can trade on. I'm not in the position participating in private placements where I buy, as a new investor, where I buy shares from a company, want to place them with my broker in Switzerland or with my bank/broker, and then to have an easy access to that they are credited onto my my portfolio so that I can trade them. It's not possible. It doesn't work.
Great.
So the point is, and something on top of it, the Canadian banking system is not on IBAN. So they have still the traditional account numbers with their big system, etc. It doesn't work. Switzerland is more advanced in this respect, and I do my, my trades online. But then the connection between Switzerland with my bank to any Canadian broker doesn't work. So I'm hoping that over time that the industry will develop further to avoid these discrepancies and time-consuming, because sometimes it takes up to a week, sometimes in some cases even 10 days, until I have my shares credited to my broker account here in Switzerland, shares which are actually of quoted companies on the Toronto Stock Exchange. So I'm hoping you two gentlemen, you are moving forward in actually educating the industry, the banking industry, because the biggest obstacle, in my view, is the traditional banking industry. They don't want to change because they lose on fees, they lose on interest. Then the longer the money takes to transfer from A to Z, makes them, gives them the availability to trade or to gain interest. And they screw you over with the exchange rate.
Yes, I'm sorry, we have to move on. And just a general, thank you for the question and the comment. Please keep your remarks short and ask a question so that we can respond. And,
can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Please, and start with your name and who, yes.
My name is Matt Rome, and I spent the better part of my career working for a French bank, liquid rate derivatives.
Right.
So I do come from the centralized world. I am no longer in the centralized world. So in terms of security, I would say, if anyone knows who Vitalik is, he would suggest using the Gnosis chain, where you can create a multi-wallet way of signing transactions. So a quantum computer would have to guess 12 to 24 seed phrases times 3 in order to get any of my money. So I'm not worried. Gnosis chain, layer 2. He's also one of the investors on there. I'd also say, in terms of the lending markets, how do you drive institutional flow, right? Because at the end of the day, institutions only care about liquidity, right? Great, you can get me in, but can you get me out, right? And so, you know, as soon as Ethereum went from proof of work to proof of stake, game on, right? And so I would urge people to look at a protocol like Frax Finance, for example. They're using real-world assets to back their stablecoin. Great, the overnight lending rate, 3-month treasury bills. That gives me some level of, you know, comfort knowing that my staked Ethereum is earning the risk-free rate, right? I love the fact that you can collateralize, right, and run a loan to value. This is all centralized finance stuff you can do right on DeFi. And there's a lot of alpha. And you can control, you can vol adjust, you can create delta neutral portfolios. It's limitless in terms of what you can do. And as a result of the recent regulation, game on. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. So, gentleman back there.
Hi, my name is Glenn. Most recently, I was running the business for Copper, UK-based custodian. In the States, I'm an advisor for Luca, a software and data provider. Simple question. Since we are talking about DeFi and DEXs, where would you say the ecosystem is compared to centralized exchanges like Coinbase, Bitstamp, OKX, will be? You know, where do you see your state of play given these two ecosystems?
Perfect. So I think we'll take the questions and then we'll go into the final comments. So if I structure the question, we'll start with the gentleman back there from Copper. You know, where do we stand finally today, given all the advancements, but also given all the challenges that we have? Where do we stand in challenging the SEX when it comes to these applications and these verticals? Number two is, I think, as the gentleman was saying over there, are you looking at technological innovation being a part of that? Or are we saying that we have enough technology, let's just focus on deploying and scaling and you know, battening the hatches, so to speak? And the gentleman back there, Mr. Fitz, was talking about, well, how do we convince the banks? And someone says, I don't want to convince the banks. I wish I could do without talking to my banker, to be frank. But yes, the fact is that the traditional finance guys are still the elephants in the room, and we've got to deal with them. So we've got roughly, I would say, 4 minutes for this. So you don't have to answer all three. Take the one that you think is most relevant.
A quick try?
Sure, Marcel.
Regarding where we stand with the sexes, I just give a real-world example. 2 days ago, or generally, I regularly check our support tickets when people do have questions in our wallet. And now we see more and more users onboarding to the wallet that do not have a background in DeFi, but they come from sexes. So they post a screenshot asking, hey, I wanted to swap BUSD to USDC, for example, but it says now I do need BNB for gas. What is it? Right, because they come from Binance and they don't have it there. So then we can explain, and by now he actually does need some BNB, but we will be able to abstract that away so that he does not actually need to have, you know, the gas currency in the wallet. So the user already starts thinking we are kind of a SEX, but we're a startup and not that good as Binance, but we are actually fully DeFi, and he's still comparing us already, although DeFi is a magnitude 10 complex, you know, to make it running. So I would say we're kind of close, but to get, you know, the mass onboarding, I would say 2-3 years out, that you get everyone. And just one very small comment regarding the, you know, Canada stock and so on. You know, BMW, they didn't want to build electric cars, right? None of the German automakers wanted to build cars with electric motors, and now they do because there is a demand from the people who want to buy it. Otherwise, they lose out revenue. Same thing is happening with crypto. That's why the Bitcoin ETF is now, you know, tradable on every bank account. So if the banks do not understand that the revenue is shifting because of the people's demand, they will get bankrupt. But the smart banks, they will eventually shift.
So I will tackle also the question about sexes and DEXs. I believe sexes will always exist. Why? Because they are easy way to onboard people. It's easy way to get into the crypto without hustling with you know, wallets, gas fees, connecting, adding networks, this and that. So it always will exist because people are not always keen on to educate, or they are too afraid very often of using something that I'm responsible actually for. It's my responsibility if I will give someone the keys to my wallet. So that's one element. The second, there was a comment about banks that they are not convinced. They are totally convinced. Like, banks are totally convinced. The problem of banks is they work slow, and they usually grow through M&As. So they need to buy a couple of companies to join the race and to start providing and building things with that. So they are in, but they need time. And the comment about the systems and how slow is it for you to trade, tokenization is going to solve that problem, because then the broker can just hold liquidity, but tradability is going to happen on the secondary market with a tokenized asset. And then you can combine the old systems as they are right now with tokenized asset on the blockchain through marketplaces, DEXs, SEXs, anything that will bring tradability. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Like, the game here is not convincing. Is not working out how to make these systems integrate with existing systems, but how to work out how you move the user base from the existing systems to the new systems. Like, all of the problems that you were mentioning are solved by tokenizing the asset and having a completely different stack, right? Using stable coins and tokenized assets rather than banks and brokers. Regulation needs to be in place and all this kind of stuff. But I think it goes back to the principle of crypto. Like, we are still very, very early. I mean, I know it feels like it's late in the game. Bitcoin's just got an ETF approved and all this kind of stuff. But if you look back at the start of Bitcoin, people didn't buy and use Bitcoin because it was better money. It was a better idea of money at the time. And so people believed in the idea, and so they voted with their wallets. They went and suffered through the pain of using those wallets, the pain of using that technology, having to understand how to download a full Bitcoin node and sync it up so that you could send it. They went through that pain because they believed in the principle of it. And we're still at that stage with DeFi. We're still at the stage where if we actually want this reality, this better idea for a financial system to emerge, we have to go through pain to make that happen. We have to vote with our money, but also with our belief in how, if we all do this together, it can become a better system, but only through collective effort. In the same way that Bitcoin didn't become worth hundreds of billions of dollars as a result of it actually being at the time better. It was a better idea. And that's what we have right now. We have a better idea for how you can build a financial system. And it's everyone's responsibility here to work out ways in which their business and them individually can interact with it, understanding that it is going to be painful versus the system that you currently use, but that you are helping a better system emerge as a result.
So let's suffer together.
Let's suffer together.
I'd like to wrap it up now. We've less than 2 minutes going. I think, first of all, this was an amazing discussion. We really exchanged where we stand. This is a very cutting-edge topic. For those of us in the industry, it's like, oh, yeah, derivatives on crypto, yeah, of course, right? But for a majority of people, derivatives is already a hard word. Derivatives on crypto, on a DEX, now you're going down the rabbit hole there, right? So I think we need to keep in mind and keep sense of the fact that all of this is really new. This is really new, and as you were saying, it's a part of the idea has driven it so far because people have actually voted where it mattered with their wallets. If there was no investment into these companies, if there was no risk-taking in these kinds of technologies, if the VCs didn't turn up, if people like TWF were not there, this wouldn't have happened, right? So it is really a credit to those individuals who, on the technology side, many of us come from the technology side, who built these things, but also to all the people who said, let's finance this, let's take the risk, and let's live through those fantastic volatile times and get somewhere. So I think I would like to end with saying that, to me, it's exactly what Davos has always stood for. People think Davos is traditional. Davos is about what's built in. But no, Davos has always been, for those of us who are really in Davos, it's always been a disruptor. Some of the brightest ideas have always come here and presented first and then gone out to the world. I mean, there were AI panels in Davos back in 2015. I was on some of them. So, it's a sense of where we are as the industry. And let's end, I think, with an applause not only to the amazing organization done by the CRYPTO2030 organizers, DWF Labs, and all the other partners who've contributed greatly to it, but also to ourselves to have actually pushed this idea to a point where no one has any option but to take it very seriously. Thank you for doing that.